unemployment rate has increased to 34.4% in the second quarter of 2021. This is the highest unemployment rate we've had since the survey started in 2008. You'll remember in the first quarter, we were at 32.6%. So it's a 1.8% increase. Let's bring in Economist Dr Lumkile Mondi, who is, in fact, says an improvement is expected, who is joining us now. Doctor, thank you so much for making time. At 34.4% unemployment rate, 7.8 million people without jobs, and this when you are looking at the conservative definition of unemployment.
Well, Clement, it's a disappointing figure because we have seen really an increase in the commodity prices, which usually backs our manufacturing sector because there's a linkage between our mining and manufacturing sector. So it came to me as a big surprise because I was expecting that the boom in the commodity sector will be accompanied by an improvement in the manufacturing sector. So I still believe going forward that we're going to see a rebound in the manufacturing sector, partly supported by the boom in the mining sector, but more importantly also by government policies, which seems to favor localization of some of the important goods, and therefore it should bode well for resurgence in manufacturing and therefore a deeper creation of jobs, which will, of course, will get much better should we have a positive impact in vaccinating people, opening up our economy to get the tourism, hospitality sector going as well. So I think really the numbers are shocking, but however, I think the medium to long-term outlook for South Africa's employment still looks better. At least we should be averaging about 9.5 when we're open and we have localized manufacturing, and therefore the economy, at least in totality, is operational.
Yeah. When you are dealing with a crisis like we are dealing with, of these high levels of unemployment, you've got different ideas of what is to blame. There are people that are blaming the lack of investment. There are people that are blaming restrictive labor laws. How much of these factors do you think have had an impact on unemployment getting to these high levels?
So, Clement, it's very important for us to historicize South Africa's economy. This is an economy based on exclusion of the black majority. So the economy was built for a small white minority, and therefore many scholars like Fine and Rustom J have argued about what is called a mining an energy complex to service the minority. So therefore, that historical structural unemployment through the migration system, all of us are familiar with, which was based on influx control and trapping millions of black South Africans in the rural areas, particularly women who were expected to stay at home and men going to the cities. That with that context of history, you should appreciate that the structural change is very important. And unfortunately, that structural transformation of deracialization of our economy, the ANC has done an extremely poor job in redressing and opening up this economy, breaking down monopolies. So what it's done is adopted this method that were inherited and had continued what academics argue as path dependence. And that's the problem. We have to restructure this economy if we're going to deal with this structural unemployment, which is based on a historical accumulation process of South Africa's economy.
Yeah. So what should be the plan? How can we restructure that economy? We know COVID-19 has played a role, but that shouldn't absolve government. Yes. Do you think government has a workable, even practical ideas to grow the economy and create jobs? The Reserve Bank governor said last week that the recovery in employment levels following the pandemic was lagging behind the GDP recovery.
Yes. So, Clement, we have to embark on huge structural reforms across many sectors. The easiest one is starting with government. We know that within government, our cabinet is far bigger given the size of our economy and the size of our country. So we need to cut down there drastically. As we do so, that has to filter through to local level, because I think many of the microeconomic reforms which were supposed to be undertaken never took place, with the DTIC, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, really slowly moving its feet. So we need to open up this economy more by allowing businesses to trade, removing restrictions and licensing, and therefore re-energizing really the entrepreneurial spirit that we see in South Africa. That won't be enough, Clement, without the banking sector being responsive to the excluded majority, where the access to finance is still a big problem, because the deal makers, whether it's in the banking sector, in the development finance institutions for government, don't understand black entrepreneurs. So a number of black entrepreneurs fund themselves from their own pockets, from family as well as friends. So until we access opportunities and finance and understand the economy in the township and rural areas, we're going to be short in terms of employment creation. Remember, Clement, close to 30% of our economy is informal, with about 70% being formal. So it is a bigger economy of 30%, and it's going to be increasing going forward, given the numbers that we've seen of loss of jobs, which lost just about 54,000 jobs in the second quarter of this year.
Yeah, are we placing enough focus on the informal economy, given how significant it is, in fact, in helping with the growth of jobs?
So, Clement, there are lots of challenges there, even in the informal economy. Remember, the informal economy will work much better if it had functioning local government. So one of the biggest issues is around the capability of the state. So you find that in the local government, the water is a big issue. We know about Lichtenberg, for example, which is a popular example about what has happened in Lichtenberg, how companies are leaving Lichtenberg because of the weaknesses of local government. So if you cannot provide the basic services, whether it's water, whether it's uninterrupted power supply, roads, etc., you make it difficult for the informal sector. So we need to unlock the capabilities. And I'm hoping that many of these parties that submitted their list to the IEC yesterday night are giving us, as a public, a choice of capable people that understand these problems. Because if you do that, if you unlock government and therefore you ensure that the councillors themselves understand the challenges on the ground, the informal sector will thrive. Of course, if you supplement that with the fact that some of those that have lost their jobs to COVID have got pensions, and government is talking about them being allowed to have access to those pensions, some of them might create opportunities by self-employing themselves. With a failing local government, they're going to be poorer and poorer and become a burden to government. So therefore, if government is going to do these policies, it will ensure that it's capable at local level, is unlocking some of the savings that are on our pension funds, and the cost of doing business is easier for this informal economy to grow and thrive.
All right, Dr. Lumkile Mondi, economist and senior lecturer at Wits University. Thank you so much for making time this afternoon. These numbers are actually said, when you look at the conservative definition, 34.4% unemployment rate, 7.8 million people without jobs. But the expanded definition of unemployment, when you look at that accounts for discouraged people that are discouraged from seeking work, and that's increased by 1.2%, meaning the percentage is sitting at 44.4%. If you include people that are now discouraged, right, from looking for work. When you look at unemployment, 64% of those between 15 and 24 are unemployed, and 43% of those between 25 and 34 are unemployed. This is a crisis.